My name is Eddie Kohlhase. I am a distinguished old boy of St. Peter's College and a very proud one. My achievements really have been involved in sport. Being the head coach of the Black Sox following a long career as a player. I guess the achievements were winning a world championship as a player in 1984 and then returning as a head coach in 2013 to be the only man to win a world championship as a player and a coach. I started St. Peter's College in 1975 as a Form 1 fresh-eyed student and left school in 1981. Well, I do remember standing at the top area there for assembly, and Brother Doherty at the time was our principal or headmaster at the time, and I can remember coming from St. Mary's Convent in Ellerslie, a very, very small school, and wearing our grey uniforms at the time. And I remember vividly the train from West Auckland arriving, and these hordes of big men, it appeared at the time, charging up, and rather overwhelming really, but still remains a very vivid memory of mine. I found comfort in the college. I obviously came from a convent, primary Catholic school, so we had 5 or 6 of my very close friends that accompanied me to St. Peter's College, and whilst we were not all in the same classes, or the 4 Form 1 classes there at the time, we were all very involved in sport. And so my comfort really, I found, was one in friendship from my friends from the convent, but practically on the sports field of athletics and rugby at the time. The man, there's very many people that had, I think, significant influences on me, but I do remember Mr. George Harvey, who was a very senior gentleman at the time, who was a history and geography teacher. And what I remember most about Mr. Harvey wasn't so much what he did in the classroom, but I think the interest that he took in me as an individual outside of the classroom. A bit of a mentor, one that obviously saw some talent that I had both in the classroom but also on the sports field, and he just reminded me to have balance in my life and remember and be humble at all times. So a significant and profound man. He unfortunately later died 6 or 7 years after I left school, but I'll never forget his words of wisdom. One of the most challenging times that I faced was when I had to repeat my 6th form year. It was a difficult time. I was a high achiever academically and in the sporting world. Had just passed my school cert at the time with flying colours, but I was very heavily involved in sport. And whilst not an excuse, I lacked balance, and my attention waned somewhat, and I failed my first attempt with UE. Being the captain of the first 15, captain first 9, then in the athletics team, and repeating the 6th form year was a challenge. What I think has always endeared me to St. Peter's was that you were never judged. I was just still Eddie, and they're just another guy at the school who actually just had to repeat, and there was no looking at me sideways or judging at the time. In fact, it was just total support by the coaches, so the teachers rather, and my fellow students. So whilst it was challenging, and you can talk about ego and all the rest of that stuff, in true St. Peter's spirit, it was just helping one each other to get through what you needed to get through. I left school as a 16, 17-year-old and joined the New Zealand Customs Service. And I had a 30-year career in customs, and for me at the time it was about giving back to the community, albeit it was a government agency. So I took a lot of pride in serving the community at the time. I reached a very high position within customs before leaving to join High Performance Sport New Zealand. So now, in a leadership position in the governance and leadership of New Zealand sport. As stated previously, notable achievements really have been on the sports field, and I still believe that whilst I've won many world championships as a player and as a coach, the memory of winning a New Zealand secondary school softball championship with St. Peter's still remains one of the highlights of my sporting career. One thing, for me is from St. Peter's is that you've got to keep grounded, and with elite sport, and it is a fact in elite sport, you sometimes lose sight of where you come from, and I always drive that point that there are many people out there still working hard for Olympic success, and I have the saying that it takes 4 million people to build an Olympic champion, and I think that comes from the community spirit that we've all experienced at St. Peter's College. I have, and always, well, I'm still involved at school after leaving many years ago, and the community is such that it is just an extended family, and for me the extension of family is ever so significant. One, to a thriving New Zealand community, to a Catholic community, and to a school community. So I am indebted to the school for giving me that sense of community, and hopefully that transcends into life as I know it now. The achievement that I'm most proud of is, probably it sums up in one really. It's family. I've married for 24 years. My wife works at St. Peter's College. My two sons attend St. Peter's College. So in some ways my proudest achievement is carrying on the legacy and tradition of the college. I've been involved and contributing to our wonderful legacy. The one characteristic or attribute that I would provide or give information to new parents thinking of sending their boys to their school is that your sons will be taught humility, keeping their feet on the ground, understanding where they are, one in the school, in the community, in New Zealand and in the world, where they fit in. I think humility is a characteristic that I think pervades the spirit of the school.